What is up, people? Jean Carlos here with the Total Body Training Podcast, where I help people get lean, gain muscle, and build confidence. And today we have a really special guest. This is my friend, Lana Reed. Everybody say
Hi.
hey. And Lana is one of the best yoga instructors I have ever met in my entire life.
What?
Yes, that is true, Lana. I'm not just saying that.
Say it again. Say it again.
You're one of the best yoga instructors I've ever had in my entire life, Lana. Your head's going to get a little big there. And the reason I had you on the podcast is because I think you offer something really unique and special in the way that you train people. As a trainer, I feel that you are very effective at helping people build up and become the best yogi version of themselves. So these skills that you are teaching people each time that you come into class seem to me as though they are a progression. You come into one class and you're like, okay, like I learned this skill. And then the next time you come in, you learn another skill. And it's always kind of like something that you're building up to. It feels like you're going up a ladder rather than you just kind of doing yoga. Right. So there's some kind of like structure and rhyme or reason. And that is something that actually, folks, if you're a person here at Total Body Training, and this is true, Lana, actually influences the way that I teach. I don't think I've ever told you, but it's influenced the way that I structure my teaching here.
Cool.
Yeah, that's 100%
really cool.
true.
Yeah, that's really awesome.
Yeah, because I never thought about it that way. And so, yeah, so I'm really excited to share you with my community here. Now, before we get started, everyone, today's episode is brought to you by carbs. Lana, what's your favorite carb?
I'm so glad you asked. Sweet potatoes, by far my favorite.
Okay, all right.
And my mom used to make them every Sunday.
All right.
I don't know why I didn't get sick of them, because she would make them literally every Sunday. She would put them in the oven before we went to church, and then they'd be done when we got home from church, and we would eat sweet potatoes.
So the whole did you have the whole sweet potato?
Like the whole sweet potato.
Okay.
Like the whole thing. So even now, like I will just roast them in the oven for like 2 hours or an hour, as long as I need, and then just like slather them in ridiculous amounts of butter.
Yeah.
Grass fed. Organic.
Ghee.
Yes, some ghee. And like herbamare from Whole Foods, which is my favorite.
What's that?
It's like a herbed sea salt, essentially, with like a bunch of herbs. It's amazing. And then a little bit of black pepper, black pepper, and then maybe cinnamon.
Damn, you were making me hungry,
It's like
I was not
Thanksgiving
hungry.
every day, like all the time, hands down. Like mini Thanksgiving whenever you want in your oven.
That is awesome. It
Thank
sounds
you.
so good. I think that do yoga people get sponsors? Can you have a sponsor?
I don't know, but could Sweet Potato sponsor me?
That's what I was thinking.
Sweet Potato brands out there.
And this butter brand. You gave them a really good, I'd never heard of them, but now I'm like, because I know what a sweet potato is, but this seasoned butter.
So the herbamare, the herbed sea salt from Whole Foods. It's amazing. Change your life. It will change. I will change your life, and herbamare will change your life. Although I don't know if it's herbamare. It might be herbamare.
Yeah,
but I've only ever said herbamare.
You might be dropping your chances here of being sponsored by Marva or whatever. Marva.
Moving on.
Yeah, moving on. All right, so Lana, you have had a pretty interesting life. Not only are you a really good instructor, which is why I have you here, but it comes to find out that you have had quite an adventure at all points in your life. It seems
I do my
like.
best.
Yeah, and so we're gonna kind of dive into that if you're interested in that.
Sure.
And really, the starting point that I kind of want to start with is, when did you get into yoga?
Oh man. Okay, so get this. I'm 18, and people always ask me, were you a gymnast? Were you a dancer? I have this crazy foot point. I don't know where it came from. My teacher once told me that the arches in your body mimic each other, and I'm very bendy in my back. And so like I have these feet that are just like, they're dancer feet. Anyway, long story short, the answer is no. Like I have no athletic background. I was never a runner. I never did sports, ever. And what I did instead is like, as soon as I could, I started working to save money to travel. So like that was my what I did. And so wait, what was the original question?
No.
How did I get into
yoga? Was it on your
I don't
travel?
remember why. No.
Okay.
I don't remember why, but I was 18 and I kept hearing about yoga. I lived in Chicago at the time. And I went to the community center because one, I was poor. And I was like transitioning from graduating high school to getting a full-time job. And I went into this community center with a whole bunch of really old ladies, like 50s, 60s, like probably upper 60s, maybe some 70s. And like, I'm super gangly. I have no body awareness, like no proprioception. I have no idea where my limbs are in space. And I would go to these classes and they could kill it, like half moon pose. Like they could just kill it. You know, they had their blocks and it was like this older teacher. And so I'm just like, I have no idea what's going on. Like none. Like I'm like a baby deer that's like, and they would always be like, we would like kill for your body. You know, like 18. And I'd be like, I just want to balance and half moon. So yes, but I was only there for a couple months and then I got a full-time job. So then I couldn't do it. I was in college, night school, so I would work all day and then go to school at night. And so that ended like my introduction to yoga. And then I didn't revisit it until I moved to Mexico. So I actually dropped the ball here. No, what am I trying to say? I'm trying to say like a drum roll. I dropped out of college. To go, yes, thank you, to learn Spanish. So I moved to Mexico when I was 20. And then I met this guy and he was a yoga teacher in Mexico City. So that was like my reintroduction into the yoga world. I got a lot of privates for free. I highly recommend it. Any young person looking to do yoga, date a yoga teacher and you will get yoga for free. Or friend one, you know, you don't have to date them.
Yeah.
So that was like my re-exposure. And just along those lines, I mean, it is hard in America for a yoga teacher to make a living in particular, but
yes.
I mean, he would be on a bus in Mexico City traffic for an hour to teach an hour class, make $20, no bonus pay per student, I mean, nothing, like a flat rate of like $20. And then have to take an hour bus home. So like just mad respect to like every yoga teacher out there that is being a yoga teacher full time. It's not easy. It's hard. And especially if you're living outside of the U.S., you know.
So wait, let's back up a little bit. How did you end up in Mexico and why?
So I wanted to learn Spanish. So this is actually kind of a funny story, and I'll try to keep it short. But I was in a summer class. It was speech class.
Okay.
And there was 3 girls, and they were all white girls, and they could all speak Spanish. Now at the time, I know that they didn't speak it very well, but I didn't speak it. So like I was like, oh, they're so amazing. And one had come back from an exchange program in Colombia, and one had come back from an exchange program in Costa Rica. And then one was just this white chick that loved Latin guys. Like, so like we all like got together, and like that was like my first time going to like the Latin clubs with like reggaeton and salsa and bachata. That's how I learned how to dance.
Yeah, that's my people.
Yes. So the first time that I went, I met a guy, classic.
Yeah.
This is going to come up a lot. He was like the tallest guy in the club. He couldn't dance. We're still friends. His name is Mario. And the second time I went, I met a guy that I dated. And we dated for a while. And like he taught me pretty much everything I know about Latin dancing up to that point, although I have learned much more since. And they're both Mexican. And so anyway, like that kind of like sparked my like white girl love of Mexicans. And anyway, I made a plan with the girls, the Costa Rican girl that had come back from Costa Rica in the exchange program and the girl that had come back from Colombia in the exchange program. And we're like, we're going to move to Colombia. And then, of course, when it comes to travel, as probably many of you know, nobody actually does what they say they're going to do. So they both bailed. And I was like, but I'm like saving all my money and like this is like my plan. So I was crying. And I actually called Mario, which was the guy that I met the first time that I went to that club. And he was from this small town in Mexico called Cholula. And it's outside of the city of Puebla, which is in the state of Puebla, which is like probably about an hour and a half from Mexico City. And he's like, you should just go to Cholula. There's a lot of white people there because there's a university there. It's called UDLA, which is, I don't know how to, I only know the name in Spanish, which I won't go into, but it's UDLA. And so I was like, okay. So I moved there. I bought a ticket and I moved there. Dropped out of school and I just wanted to learn Spanish. So I moved there.
What were you going to school for at the time?
Photography.
Okay,
Yeah. So I moved there and like I didn't know anyone. He was still living in the States. So I had to like figure out how to find a place to live without speaking the language. No, I was 20.
You were 20. Okay.
Yeah. I started backpacking when I was 15, and then I had gone. I wanted to backtracking. I wanted to hike the Great Wall of China before I turned 18. So I spent the summer I was 17 backpacking in Southeast Asia.
Did you do that solo?
Asia. Not Southeast Asia, Asia.
Did you do that with?
I went with a boyfriend.
Yeah. Yeah.
He wasn't.
This is a
he
theme.
wasn't Latin. He wasn't Latin. He was
Asian?
a white boy. No. But that would have been helpful.
Yeah, that would have been helpful.
My sister was living in Korea at the time, so I stopped in Korea to visit her. And then went over to China.
Yeah.
To do the Great Wall.
Man, I have been wanting to go there for forever.
It's amazing.
Yeah,
it blew my mind. It was like the ultimate culture shock because I had already been to Europe. I went to Europe when I was 15, and then I went again when I was 18. But when I was like the first time, like just those big character like neon signs, like it was amazing.
Yeah. Well, also I would think that most people don't speak English when you go somewhere like China, right? So it's harder to.
Actually, a lot of people in Asia speak English. Like a lot, but and a lot because of the tourist. And because of the Chinese American trade. I mean, if you get outside the big cities, you're gonna have more trouble finding people.
Yeah, of course.
But
and that's really
yeah. Anyway, long story short, I decided I wanted to learn Spanish, and I was ready for another adventure. In fact, I wasn't planning on staying in Mexico. I was planning on like backpacking through Central and South America, which I didn't do. I fell in love with Mexico, fell in love.
What did you learn during that time about? I know that's a very broad question.
How hard it is to be a foreigner that doesn't speak the language in a new country. Yeah. And how to make your way. So I have so much. I think actually with my students that are new to yoga, which I don't get a lot of, but when I do, I know how much it takes for a person to walk into a studio because it's the same thing. They don't speak the dialect. Or with you, the people that you're training, it's they don't speak. I don't know anything about deadlifting or kettlebells or whatever that terminology is. So it's it is like walking into a foreign country and not knowing the language. And it's freaking scary. It's so scary. And I think I went through the first real depression of my life because I'm a talker.
Couldn't tell.
You couldn't tell, right? You couldn't tell, right? Yeah, no, I'm a talker. And so I couldn't use words anymore. Yep. And I was I don't know how to express myself. I don't know what's going on. I don't know how to get around on these buses because I don't know what these numbers mean. And there's no bus thing at the stop sign. You don't even know where the bus stops are. So, it was just in general, I still don't know. I look back and I'm how did I do that?
So what did that teach you? I think feeling like you couldn't communicate, going through that kind of depression, what did that teach you?
Man, it taught me a lot of stuff that I wish I would have been able to hold on to longer in life because I think it's those fundamental things that we're constantly learning, to stand in our power, that we're more capable than we think that we are, that we have so much ability to express ourselves beyond spoken word. And so the way that a smile, what that can communicate to someone, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. That sounds super cliche, but really you can, if somebody walks by you and they're in a really good mood, you can freaking feel it.
Yeah.
It just changes. Yeah. And when that person walks into your class and they're in a good mood, it's just whoa, or the teacher or vice versa. So I think I learned a lot of lessons that then I forgot, which is you have the power. You have the power to make anything possible. You can move to a country, not know anyone. You can change your body by training. You can do whatever you want. Every limitation that you have that you're seeing in front of you is self-imposed.
Yes.
Literally. Especially in America where there are so many programs for people. So many things are accessible for people that might not be accessible. And you can get free. You can go to the library and get free knowledge for free. Literally for free.
People forget that. People forget that we have a tremendous amount of opportunity to grow, and people get really defeatist, and it can be really damaging to think life is just like this, and I can't grow or develop, and so many people fall into that range, But it sounds like what it did for you is it kind of taught you that you can do more, right? That you can be a bigger person. But it sounds like you were kind of already cultivating that kind of mindset with your entire life from a really young age.
Yeah, but also at the same time, those are just lessons that it's every time that you have to, you're defaced with, when you're confronting a perceived No, what I'm trying to say is every single time that you have the opportunity to look at something, move into a place where you feel fear, you feel uncomfortable, like every time you have to look at that fear in the face and make the decision to go there.
Yeah.
And be uncomfortable and maybe feel like the idiot and maybe look like the idiot.
Yeah, that's how you grow.
Yeah, totally. And that's how you grow.
Yes.
And I think if you don't, if you don't take those opportunities, like that's when we stagnate as people.
Yes,
totally.
yes, we have to. We have to be willing to be uncomfortable with the uncomfortable.
And it sucks. It sucks to not know what you're doing. It sucks to be the only one in the room that hasn't been doing yoga for 5 years. Like that sucks. It sucks to be that person that doesn't speak Spanish in a room full of Spanish speakers. Like it just sucks. But it's also like, what can I do in this situation? You know what I mean? Like, do I want to move towards this discomfort or away from it?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the obstacle is the way. I mean, and that humbling effect, I think, lets you continue to learn and grow. And so many people don't want to have that conversation with themselves when they don't understand something because they're embarrassed or they're not willing to do it. I mean, I definitely see it all the time.
Totally. And just, mad respect for anyone that's had to go out of their comfort zone, any refugee, really anyone in life that's getting up and starting a new job, and you know what I mean? Yeah.
So, with traveling, did you what was the experience like of seeing people whose economic situation was much different than what we see in America? Like, was that something that was impressed upon you when you were there? Like, were you made more aware of that?
So I actually grew up quite poor myself.
Really?
Yeah. I'm the youngest of 6.
Okay.
Anyway, I grew up quite poor, but also I think like America's poor in a lot of instances can be very different than a third world country's poor.
Yes.
And so I think right now in my life in particular, like I'm really focusing on positivity. And so I look at, and I can tie this back to yoga very intentionally because pain, when we experience pain in something, it's a gift. And we don't like to look at it that way because we don't want to think about it. We want it to go away. We want it to get out of our way. And ultimately, like, it's this thing that's saying something isn't right. And it's giving us this opportunity before further damage is done to do something differently. And so to come back to your question, it's like in every situation, we have opportunities to grow or to turn away. Like in every situation, there is something that we learn from difficulty. And it's never easy. It's never easy to see that. It's so painful to see that and to confront that humanity. But then you get to ask yourself those bigger questions. Like, how am I going to take better advantage of what I have to offer in my life? And what can I offer to people that have less? How can I be more generous in a real, like, sustainable way, Yeah.
It's a question that I think, like, unfortunately, like a lot of times people aren't confronted with. And, it's a very real thing. I mean, the things that we complain about are just, to me, like, sometimes so trivial. It's like, oh, they didn't have the right butter at, like
this is the first world problems hashtag. Like totally a first world problem.
And it's like, oh yeah, but like some people don't have water. It's
totally.
It's like that's such a huge problem, know. And like for me, I always bring it back to that. It's always like, all right, like this sucks, but like there's somebody who has it way, way worse than I will ever have it. Who am I to complain? It's like, so I would say, like, did that help humble you? Did you feel like a humbling process in that, or do you feel like you came into
it? Always. Hopefully every situation in my life has been humbling.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like I would ask and continually ask that I'm humbled by the people that I meet, by how much I don't know, by how much I have when I don't think I have a lot. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And that kind of introspection, I think, is something that's like directly linked in yoga. It's something that seems to be a part of it.
It's definitely something that we, as yogis, are ideally working towards, and that's like this awareness of stepping back and there's a lot of different components of it, but definitely finding the joy through the practice, but also stepping back from like the craziness of life to get a better perspective, which is what traveling does. That you're stepping away from your normal life to get a different perspective, and hopefully a better perspective on what's out there and what you really truly have to be grateful for.
I love it. So when did you decide to become a teacher then?
I don't know. I think it was somewhere in Mexico. I mean, at some point, I subbed a couple of my boyfriend's classes. And like, that's really, I think, I don't know what it was about yoga, like not having done any sports. Like I literally, it's hard to remember. Do you know, it's like when someone asks you, like, how did you meet this person? It's like, you remember how you met, but like, you can't really remember how you became friends. It's like, just kind of like maybe you remember when you meet. It's like, I remember meeting yoga, and I remember like the love, like the instant infatuation with yoga. I don't think I ever like I don't remember that when I was 18 in that really awkward community class with the older ladies, but I remember even then, like I remember him telling me that he was a yoga teacher, and I was like, let's do yoga. Like, let's do yoga. Like, let's do it. And like never not wanting to do yoga. And so I think, you know, he had a very dedicated daily practice. And so even when I wasn't participating, I was watching that dedication when I was around him. And I think, I don't know, like I just never it just became so quickly a part of like my being. Well,
like, okay, so did you have a knack for teaching when you were growing up? Like, I'm trying to see if there's like okay, so like for me as a trainer, right, I've always done some kind of teachy kind of thing. You know, like that's always been like, or like what I'm doing right now, just talking. Like I
have a knack for talking.
Well, that might be it.
So
you have a knack to like explain things, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, but I'm also not a patient person, which is really cool because yoga brings that out in me. Like teaching yoga, I'm so passionate about it that I am patient in ways that I am not patient outside the classroom at all. Like I have such compassion and such patience and such admiration for a beginning yoga student that like I don't have if like I'm teaching someone how to cook something for the first time. I'm like, why don't you get it already? Like, why are you like, you know what I mean? I don't have any patience. But then in the classroom, I don't know. Like I think I get it. And I think that's because maybe I didn't have the dance background or the gymnastic background. So, I mean, literally, I had to learn everything that I can do now from scratch. And so I think that that's another reason that I'm able to break it down for people is because I've been the beginner.
Yeah, you didn't have that natural athletic thing. You didn't grow up that way. I can
and a
relate
lot of people with handstands, like the handstand work that I do now, they're like, I remember being a gymnast and like being little and like doing handstands. And like I grew up in a really conservative religious family. Yeah. So like we were only allowed to wear skirts. Like there was not really gym for girls. It was separated from the guys. And like, if anyone's ever heard of culottes before, they were like down to here. And like, there was not dance in my world or gymnastics in my world or.
What I did too. I didn't know that about you. I went to a private Christian school where the girls were not allowed to wear regular pants. They had to wear culottes when they worked out. They had to wear skirts because that's what was considered to be proper. Can I ask what denomination?
Yeah, it's Southern Baptist. So my dad worked for 20 years at Bob Jones University.
Oh my God. I know quite a bit. I wrote a paper about the belief system.
So my older 3 siblings graduated.
Yeah.
And I was there till 4th grade. I think my two of the other ones either almost finished high school. But the older 3s and older 3 and a younger 3 were all the same parents though, and they all graduated all the way from college. Is this okay territory
to talk about?
Yeah, I mean not like too. I mean I don't know too deep, but yeah, I mean so like, but very conservative. Yeah. So people they don't understand. Like it's interesting that you understand because when I'm saying like I had a conservative background, it's like you don't get it. Like conservative, like no pants, no TV. No music.
No secular music. No, you can't get close to people of the opposite sex. You can't.
Yeah,
right.
Like my like if you're at like a co-ed game, for example, like they have people that come through the bleachers and like check how much distance there is between a guy and a girl. And so I think also, I mean that. One, there's a lot of built-in shame for women in that type of culture.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Body image wise. And so I think for yoga too, there was a lot of freedom for me, not in a scandalous way by any means, but just really getting into my body for the first time. Like, oh, that's my leg. Like, oh, that's my arm. Like, oh, this is what my body feels like when I'm doing something that's joyful. Because there was no dancing.
Yeah.
None.
Yeah, I know.
Not even like waltzing dancing. There was no dancing. So, that might have been why I was attracted to yoga also.
Yeah.
This was the first time that I was able to experience my body. And of course, my parents have had a pretty big aversion to yoga for a long time.
Yeah, because they think, well, at least the people that I was with in school like that would say that, yeah, it's a religion and that you're opening up your mind to evil spirits. And that, I mean, I remember preachers. Yeah, I know your story because I went to actually my family's not even Baptist. So like I went to a Baptist school because my parents wanted me to be around like good kids. It's a long story for a different podcast, but
let's just do a podcast on overcoming.
yeah. This is like a whole like thing. It's like a lot of like how you view the world and how you view yourself and like how you view like your sexual desires and how you view like all this other stuff. But back to the point here. What was I saying? Something about
I don't know. You were saying about going to school.
Damn it.
I interrupted.
No, it's fault. Okay. It's all right. It's all good. I lost track.
You're going to rewatch the podcast. Yeah. And like, that's totally what I was going to say.
Of course.
And it was so important.
Of course. Something about not dancing, not wearing certain kinds of clothing. What were you saying last?
I don't know. Something along those lines. No dancing.
Oh, well, you just can't do shit. Like,
yeah,
you
essentially.
Can't do anything that's like fun.
Which is okay. So then people.
Yoga. I remember now.
Yes.
Yeah. So like I remember preachers every Monday we would have, and you know this, chapel.
Oh my
We'd
God.
have chapel. And every Monday we'd have either the preacher in our school or a preacher who came through the circuit. And since we're the same age, you know what? We might have had some of the same preachers.
Oh,
because there
I
are
have
preachers.
No doubt.
Yeah, there are preachers who travel the country, doing stuff. So I bet that we had some of the same preachers.
Even to this day, I have like the weirdest thing about being trapped in places because my parents, like, we had to go to Bible school on Saturdays. We had to go to Wednesday night church service. And then on Sundays, we had to go 3 times. So you had to go early for Sunday school, and then you had to go to the Sunday morning service, and then to the Sunday evening service. So like, it would be, especially in in my particular church, I can't speak for every Southern Baptist church, but it was like hours. And like just being this little kid and just being forced to sit for hours and hours and hours. Like, it was the most miserable thing ever. That might be another reason I like to move, because I just had to be like no talking and silence for so long for just having to do that. Yeah, it was like still like traumatizing to think about.
Were you afraid a lot as a kid because of that?
I was afraid of every time do you know this, like anyone that was taught about the rapture, like anytime you like couldn't find your mom, you'd be like, the rapture's happened. Like, she'd like go to visit the neighbors and you'd be like, I'm the only one left in the world.
Yeah.
But yeah, well, and it's really interesting because my parents were incredibly conservative. So they didn't actually know about all of these boyfriends that I'm referencing.
Yeah, that's what
they had no idea. I mean, I wasn't allowed to date. But yeah, I actually had a boyfriend for 3 years that they never met. And it was from like 16 to 19. So it was like pivotal years. And the Asia trip that I did with him, they thought that I did it alone. But I actually just like had a separate photo album that had every picture I took with him, I took without him. So I had like a whole, like, it was like a secret life. I mean, it was just, there was no openness. There was no room for openness or honesty in my family at all. And there was no conversation about how to express emotion. It was all about repression. This is not appropriate, and this is not how a woman acts, and this is, like, this is a woman's place.
No, I know, yeah.
So, I mean, that's a big topic also, but...
It is. It puts you in a constant state of fear, where you constantly feel like you're wrong, like you're doing something that's going to mess you up. Like, am I right? The guilt. Yes.
The guilt, and like, oh my God, God's going to hate me now, and like, God's going to think I'm fucking up my life, and like, just the shame and the guilt that they really pile on you.
Yeah,
it's kind of crazy.
So, do you have a spiritual practice now, or?
Man, so that's such an interesting question, and I went from kind of like ricocheting from being completely atheist to coming back to kind of my own version of faith, and then kind of actually now being in a place where I'm kind of like, like I don't know what I want this to look like. But in terms of having a spiritual practice, absolutely. Yep. And not necessarily like, I don't know what my beliefs are right now. I'm kind of in this transition period, which is just me being really honest and vulnerable with everyone. And like my spiritual practice right now is to do my journaling, my meditation, and to do the deeper work of I think that ultimately we're unknowable. As much as we want to know ourselves, I think ultimately we're unknowable. But to do that deeper work, I mean, to look at the hard stuff, to look every day as much as possible at the hard stuff, so that I don't have to be scared. Like, I don't want to be scared to look at that dark stuff. Like, I want to see every part of myself. I want to accept every part of myself, even the parts that I don't like, because there's an amazing book called Tattoos on the Heart. And have you read it?
I will post it in the description section.
Fantastic.
For this.
It's this, I believe he's a Jesuit priest that has worked with gangs. He created Homeboy Industries, and he's phenomenal if you listen to interviews with him. And anyway, he tells a story about this gang member, and I won't get into details, but he was very severely abused by his mother, and was very ashamed of those scars that his mom left him on his back, and ultimately said when he was giving this speech, he said, I used to cover up my wounds, and now I take them, I look at them and I touch them. And if I can't look at my own wounds, how can I look at other people's wounds, and how can I help the wounded if I don't look at my own wounds?
Yeah.
And so for me, it's like, how can I help other people do the physical practice of yoga if I haven't done the physical practice of yoga? How can I help other people be comfortable with the parts of themselves that maybe aren't the prettiest if I'm not comfortable with with the parts of myself that aren't pretty? And for me, that's my work. Beyond how much I love the physical practice and I love the challenge of the physical practice, for me, the power in not turning away from yourself.
Yes. The vulnerability and the ability to do the deep work that allows you to look at life more clearly is really is important when you are a teacher.
Absolutely.
Because really what you do and what I do is something that I think can be really transformative for people. It's you can find something out about yourself, or you do find something out about yourself when you are working out or when you're doing yoga that you might not have known otherwise. And so if you're not right, or if you're not in the right mental space, or if you're not practicing and digging deeper, then you're missing an opportunity to help people to get to the real point of what this is all about.
Right. And ultimately, I mean, I think every teacher across the board, no matter what you teach, you want to reach something deeper within your student. And so for me, it's not that I need every student to have some transformational experience.
No, of course.
But at the same time, even if it's as simple as we are so, as women in particular, that the perfectionist, we have to be perfect or we can't show our weaknesses, or that, hair has to be this way or our bodies have to be this way. And it's even if just one person, I can look at them and just say this is who you are, celebrate this. Mm-hmm. This is beautiful. And even when it's not beautiful, it being not beautiful is beautiful. Mm-hmm. And you are beautiful in every facet of yourself, the imperfections, the perfections. But also, I mean, there is work always to be done. And so to encourage that work, to guide that work, and to just, see, I mean, for me, my greatest joy is to see my students have success in and sometimes that success, I mean, I get a lot of type A's in my classes, because a lot of type A's, they want to work really freaking hard.
Yeah.
And sometimes that success is hey, I'm actually going to sit this pose out. And I'm hell yes! Sit this freaking pose out.
Yeah.
Whoa! You just fucking chilled out. And that's exactly what you need to be doing right now, because you are balls to the walls every freaking class. So
knowing when you need to step down is a big thing.
That's a whole different practice.
Yes, it is.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So, going from there, we kind of talked a little bit about your I did not know about that. That's super interesting. So we have a connection there. Mm-hmm. We'll talk more about that later on. That's very interesting.
Part 2.
Yeah, part 2. So you spend time in Mexico, you get into yoga, you kind of find this thing out about yourself that you didn't quite know. Mm-hmm. And then where do you go from there?
So, So again, my parents super conservative, but not when it came to traveling. I don't know why. Like they thought that I was doing these trips on my own, and they were like, "Go!" Like,
did you tell me you're on missions trips or anything like that?
No, I didn't never went on mission trips.
Oh wait, I guess you couldn't lie. That'd be too big of a lie.
No, that would be a good one though. I'm going to save the souls of the masses.
Yeah.
Anyway, long story short, so from Mexico, I lived in Mexico for about a year and a half. I was came back to the States to save a little bit more money because I wasn't working there. So I was just living. And then, let's see, after that, that's how I ended up in San Antonio. So, I kind of jumped around when I was younger. Once my dad left Bob Jones, I lived 2 other places and then moved to Mexico. And then from Mexico, I lived here in San Antonio for a couple months saving money to go back to Mexico. And I was like, I'm going to live in Mexico for forever. I'm so in love with Mexico. And then I magically was not over Mexico. My love of Mexico is so deep inside of me. But just kind of ready to do something different. And so I actually was like, well, where will I move? And before I moved to Mexico, I was in Chicago. And my dad had been laid off at his job there. So they moved to North Carolina. I was like, there's no way in hell I'm moving to North Carolina.
Yeah.
So I ended up
step back.
So I ended up where do I end up? So I ended up here in San Antonio, and I moved here in the May.
Did you have a connection here or something?
Well, so oh boy,
I think I knew it.
So when I moved here to work, I was actually so embarrassing. I was a waitress at Mamacita's off I-10, and I met a waiter there who was born in the States and grew up in Mexico. Super awesome guy. We're actually still friends. He lives here in town. And at the time, I think he'd only been living here for 2 years. So his English wasn't super fantastic. Did speak some. Anyway, we had a good connection. So we decided to give it a try when I moved back here, which we were probably together. I moved here in May of 2010. We probably broke up that following that by the end of the year. We had broken up. But that's how I ended up here. And and so then I quickly, right after we broke up actually, which was great because then I was forced to find friends, which, whenever you have a go-to person, you don't put yourself out there very much. So I started putting myself out there. I actually started going to yoga classes at the YMCA. And I found who was later my mentor for yoga school and my yoga teacher for quite a while. And her name is Siobhan. And she actually moved to Washington. Hi, Siobhan. I'll send this to you. So I started doing yoga. Yeah. So I took her classes at the YMCA 3 times a week or something like that. And then ended up applying for yoga school the following year.
Where did you go to yoga school?
So I went to yoga school at the Esther Vexler yoga school. Yeah, yoga school, EBYS. And they were the only option in San Antonio at the time, because there was only 5 studios in San Antonio in 2000. Yeah, there's a lot of a lot. And EBYS has moved around quite a bit. I was with them when they were at Synergy. The following year, Yoga came from Austin to teach their teacher trainings at Synergy. Yeah, so that's where I went to school. Mm-hmm. And what's super cool about EBYS is it's a non-for-profit. And it was the namesake. Her name is Esther Vexler. She actually passed recently, but I believe she passed when she was 97 and she was still teaching yoga. Wow. And she had been a yoga teacher for over 40 years, over 40, 50 years.
Yeah, you told me when I took a workshop with you, you told me a bit about
something.
Her.
Yeah. I mean, she's amazing. And I actually got the chance to photograph her. She was in lotus pose. I think she was 95 or 96 at the time. She was in lotus pose, which is a hard pose for most people in general, which is it's a crazy hip opener pose. But yeah, so that's where I went to school. Which was awesome.
So, so you take those classes, and then where did you teach right from the get-go?
So here's the thing. I graduated, and I was already planning a trip. Mm-hmm. There's also a theme, boys and trips. This trip originally did not have a boy attached to it. Later on, it did have a boy. But, long story short, what was the question?
The question is...
when did I start teaching? I actually started teaching at the YMCA.
Oh,
but the one off of Braun. So that super far one off of 410 and Babcock.
And were you still waitressing at the time?
No. I only waitressed for those 2.5 months that I lived in San Antonio saving money to go back from Mexico. Mm-hmm. And then I got a job when I came here.
Cool.
That was not waitressing. Mm-hmm. That was enough waitressing for me. Although I'm a good waitress. I'm good. I have good.
I am the worst. I look, I don't give a shit like about like it's I have to tell you like I don't know what it is. I did it once. Like I just don't like it. I don't like I
mean, I can't say that I like it, but I'm good at it. Like I can remember almost everyone's order. Like I can hold like a lot of information very short term. Like give me 15 minutes and it's gone, but I can hold a lot in there.
I have this thing with like selective memory. I cannot be good at something I don't like. And like I just can't.
Every limitation is self-imposed.
Yeah, okay, yeah, here I am telling people like you can do this and you okay, all right, let me put it this way. It's not that I can't.
He doesn't want to be good at things that he doesn't like.
I don't want to be good at things and I have that I don't like and that I don't have any interest or see any future.
And that's okay. That's okay.
I feel okay about it. I'm at peace with it. I just know like the one time that I was a server, it was so, oh my God. So much.
I did random stuff like my waiter, like I would like, as a single girl, I was younger and like guys would like ask weird stuff. And like, I'm just like happy to do it. Like they were like, sing me a song. I started singing Cotton Eye Joe once. I got a really big tip from that guy. He was like, sing me the first song you think of. And I started singing and dancing to Cotton Eye Joe.
Men don't get that kind of advantage, anyway, like
yeah, it was random. I put up with a lot of stuff I should not have put up with.
Oh, I am certain.
I look back and I'm just like, what was I thinking? I let them get away with some
harassment.
For sure. Yeah, especially by other managers and stuff.
But, that's ugly.
Yeah. But it's just, it's so interesting because with the whole Me Too movement, but it's like it's like as a woman, it's just you kind of expect it. And then you look back and you're like, how could I have expected those types of comments to have been made or
now it's different. You just cannot do that anymore. Yeah, it's a great thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we actually have somebody who's really involved in Me Too here.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, just locally. Yeah,
cool. Amazing.
Yeah. So we were talking a little bit about like what you did next. So
I started teaching the Y, but I already knew that I was leaving. So I didn't really want to approach a lot of studios in town and be like, hire me for 3 months before I leave. So I did teach at the Y and then taught kind of like some community-based classes outside.
So is this at the same, were you taking photos at this time for your photo project?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So tell us about the photo project.
Okay, so I did this project and back in the day, everyone knew me for this and now nobody even knows about it. I did a project, called Yoga in Unusual Places. So I started backpacking again when I was 15, went when I was 17, went when I was 18, moved to Mexico when I was 20. And then when I was 22, so my sister is a crazy adventurer. A lot of my people in my family are, and she did a lot of solo traveling for like 7-8 years and started traveling by motorcycle. And so she lived in Antarctica for a couple different seasons. And that's another long story. In Antarctica. And which is crazy.
There's no one there.
And so she started dating the Antarctic snow machine repairman. So he was from Colorado and she ended up moving to Colorado and he like taught her all this stuff about motorcycle maintenance and how to ride if that might be incorrect. And so I actually went up there at the time and she ended up doing a US trip. And then she had always, I think one of her big dreams was to do Africa on a motorcycle. So she bought a 125, and if you knew anything about motorcycles, it's like a really small engine. It's like what a scooter would have, or like most lawnmowers are like 150. Wow. Lawnmowers.
So not a lot of power.
No. And she did a solo trip from Johannesburg to Kenya on her own.
Jeez.
And back, and actually met her husband in South Africa. So she's now married to a South African. But I flew over there.
I have to say something. He has to say something. Okay,
Tell me.
So Bob Jones has some pretty strong feelings. Is this okay that I say this? Do you know where I'm going with this?
Yeah.
About like interracial dating.
He's white.
Okay. All right. See, like I just assumed that.
Yeah, he's white. Yeah. He's white South African.
Mind,
yeah. But yes, they do. Like they do. They absolutely. I mean, Bob Jones has gotten that is a big topic.
Yeah.
And there's been some scandals that have come out. I don't know if you kept up on some of the scandals that came out. Probably back in, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5, 6 years ago.
What happened?
Just some scandals.
Okay,
you should read.
I'll look at it.
Google.
I've been feeling like this need to say it because I wrote a paper about this.
Okay, yeah.
So when I was in college. So like this is like on the back of my mind. another topic.
Yes.
All right. Sorry.
No, anyway, so I actually took time off of work and flew to Africa.
Yeah.
My first time in Africa, and did in the middle of winter, I jumped on the back of her bike, which 2 people on a 125 plus gear is like crazy. It's really hard to go fast. And we were in the dead of winter, and it was icy roads. It was freezing. I've never been so cold in my life. And most people that do that type of adventure riding are doing it with proper gear. And I didn't have any proper gear. Like, I was using some of her old gear that she happened to have over there that was not insulated from weather. I've never been that cold or that miserable in my entire life. And I was like, I cannot wait to do this again. Yeah. I cannot wait to do this again.
So you like the pain, like the challenging like yourself pain. That way.
I'm a sensation junkie.
Yeah. Okay, all right. So tell us what that means. Tell us what that means.
No, I mean, I think that I'm a very emotional person, and I feel very deeply. But I think at the same time, like, so I try to moderate that by like mindfulness practices that are like separating me from my emotions. I've had to learn like how not to live by my emotions and realize that my emotions. I don't want to be reactive. You want to be proactive. Yeah, and that's one of the things that yoga started to give me that space between something happening and my reaction to something happening. Yeah, totally. Yeah. And I think that's one of the big things that attracted me to it, because that was my first experience of not being emotionally reactive to something.
I thought it was dumb. Like when I for me, I mean, my first
and then he walked into my class and I kicked his ass, and he was
there's
like,
a little bit more to it. Yeah,
to
but
this.
that definitely helped. Yeah. Like I had a teacher, actually, I got really lucky, who taught a class called Buddhist psychology.
Oh, cool.
And that was my intro, and then I was just like, oh, this is actually like something that's cool. Like the fixing, like you being reactive to things instead of like you being, learning to be dispassionate. Just like, this is what's happening. This is the experience. I can either react to it or I can be proactive about it. Like that whole process.
Totally. And I think, we just on a daily basis, like we have so much shit going on, like so much stuff that we have to do in one day that just didn't exist before. We were in tribes, we were in bigger communities. We're not balancing home life and careers and social lives and romantic lives and like all of those things. So I think the modern person like needs it so much even more than than maybe someone in the past needed it, where they could get their meditation on their morning walk through the jungle as they gathered berries. There was no iPad, no telephone, no news, nothing for them to be distracted by or to pull them out of that moment.
And so on these trips, you're very in the moment then.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah,
Because you don't really have...
Because you're freezing and you're trying not to fall asleep / cry / die.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And then also like these moments of like misery juxtaposed with like the most beautiful shit that you've ever seen in your life. Like you're in the middle of nowhere. You smell everything. You feel everything. Like you see the look in people's eyes when you pass by, especially when you're on a small bike and you can't go very fast. And then just this road just breaks away to like the majesty, like the freaking majesty that is like our world.
And there are so many beautiful pictures if you hop on her Facebook and you just look. I mean, there's some gorgeous sights and scenes. What I want to know is something that people with Wanderlust talk about a lot less, which is what's like one of the weirdest things that you saw? Because I had moments, okay, like I haven't traveled nearly as much as you, like, but in my travels, I did see very weird things. Like if you're out long enough and you're up late at night and you're meeting different people, you just run into something and you're like, what the fuck was that?
So I don't know.
You've got to
have think of something like where I saw something, but I was riding through a town in, I think it was, gosh, I can't remember which Central American country it was, on my motorcycle. And like, there was this drunk guy and it was this really small town. It was like, there was a main road through it. Yeah, always a drunk guy. And like, there was maybe like 3 like rickety shops, and like, I slowed down to like let this guy pass. And so he like stops, like takes a step back and is like, go. So Justin, who I was with at the time, was ahead on his motorcycle, and he saw it in the rearview mirror. But I was going very slow through past this guy. I had already slowed down because I knew that he was unpredictable. And I rode past, and he leaned forward, and he smacked me on the back of my head, but I had a helmet on.
Whoa.
And I was just like, did that just happen? Like, I looked ahead, and he was like, Justin had seen it too. And I was just like, I cannot believe that this random drunk guy that I was totally respectful to, like, to let him get out of it. Like, I was totally not speeding past, just like hit me on the back of the head.
That is so weird.
It's the weirdest thing.
Man, mine was with a random drunk guy too.
Really?
But it was in a McDonald's. It was in Columbus, Ohio.
Uh-oh.
We were on tour, and
All
we
the
were
things happen in Columbus,
Yeah,
Ohio.
yeah, Ohio. Yeah, Ohio's a weird state.
My dad's family is from Ohio.
Well.
Hello, friends.
I wonder if Dad's
Hello,
watching
family.
right now.
Anyway, carry on.
Yeah. So I'm in a McDonald's drive-through, and we're waiting to get food, and we just see this man with his pants down come by, and he's urinating on himself. He's urinating everything. He's foaming at the mouth. He was on some kind of substances, and he's just like, I know, and I'm not saying it to make fun of the guy, but it was just like,
it's really
so
bizarre.
surprising. You're just like, what were you doing tonight?
Totally.
Like, what led to that? Like, how?
And I have to say, a lot of people pass me peeing on the side of the road. And it's really hard to pee on the side of the road. One, when you're a girl, and two, when you've got a lot of motorcycle gear on.
I hadn't even thought about that.
Yeah.
Especially when it's
there's no quick pee. Like, you've got rain gear on, you've got your motorcycle pants, you've got your warmer layers, underwear.
Have you seen that attachment that you can...
The funnel?
Yeah, the funnel thing.
Okay, then what am I going to do with a pee funnel? Am I going to strap it to the back of my bike?
Maybe you can wear it, like when you go on the road.
It wouldn't have been... I don't think it would have been any less awkward. Yeah, but a lot of people pass me on the side of the road doing things that they...
Sometimes you got to pee, Lana.
You do.
Yeah. Okay.
If you take nothing away from this podcast,
it's
sometimes
you'll
have
get
to
sick
use
if
the
you
bathroom.
don't. Yeah, you'll get sick if you don't.
Totally.
People literally get sick.
Totally.
Like, from not using the bathroom.
It's awful.
It's a thing.
It's also uncomfortable.
Just use the bathroom.
Just go.
Just go.
Just do it.
If you got to do it like that guy.
What's the worst thing that can happen? Someone sees you pee. Just remember, at least you're not in a McDonald's.
And at least everybody does it.
And at least you don't live in Ohio, except everyone that lives in Ohio. We love you.
All of you. So, you're telling me a little bit about before I took away from your story.
Yeah, no. I don't remember what I was telling you about. But essentially, miserable in Africa led me to, like, I want to do this. So I came back to the States and learned how to ride a motorcycle and planned a trip. Which led to the photo shoot. So you start collecting photos of people in random places, and just for perspective,
doing yoga, and just for perspective, this was in 2012, right?
Yeah.
So at this time, Instagram and all that stuff wasn't what it is now. So now I
didn't download Instagram till like 2015 or 2016.
Yeah, it's you see these things more often now, but to put it in perspective for people right now, in 2012 people weren't taking pictures as commonly of people in random spots doing yoga. It just wasn't a thing. Now you can, you know what I mean, just because of Instagram and what it is.
Totally.
In photo culture you see that, but at the time it wasn't. So you were doing something kind of fun and cutting edge, like throughout town. Yeah, she was cutting edge.
I was cutting edge. But so the thing is like I was broke. And so I just bought a ticket and was like, this is going to happen. I bought a ticket for November in January. And I told Justin, who I was dating at the time, like, hey, I'm going to go on this trip. I don't know if you want to keep dating, but like, I'm going to do this trip on my own and get a motorcycle. He ended up deciding he wanted to do it with me and also learning how to ride, which is a whole nother story. But I was like, how am I going to make money for this? So I started doing donation photographs of people doing yoga, and they would donate to my trip.
Did something inspire that for you to do it by donation?
You know, it's so funny. I think someone suggested it. I think someone was like, I would totally like donate, like, and have you take pictures. I think someone was just randomly like, why don't you just like, I would totally donate if you took pictures. I don't know. It's like some random offhanded comment. And then I think I was like, do you think people would actually do this? Like, would you be interested in like doing yoga and like donate to my trip? And And I just kept getting yeses. And I was like, okay, well, this is like a thing. And then the word kind of spread. If I remember correctly, I photographed around like 75 people. And then right before I went on the trip, I had my first and only gallery opening at Millworks. And it was all my photographs of, not all my photographs, but a few of my photographs printed.
It's so cool.
Of people doing yoga. And actually, super crazy story. One of the lady that bought 2 of my pictures had lost her son to a motorcycle accident. He had died in a motorcycle accident, and she found out about my gallery opening and came and purchased 2 of my pictures to support me on the trip.
Yeah, that's really awesome of her.
But yeah,
it almost seems like a way you'd make peace with it.
Yeah, I don't know. It's so random that I remembered that because I hadn't thought about that for a long time.
Yeah,
but yeah.
And so you made enough money to fund yourself doing that?
But I did this trip like freaking shoestring. So I'm never very impressed when people are like, I did not anyone most people I don't really know people that do motorcycle trips, but when you read blogs, it's like they're on these big BMWs, they've got a ton of expendable income, they're staying in hotels. It's like, that is us people that like really rough it. Like we like to make fun of people that like think they're roughing it, but they're not roughing it at all. But I did the whole trip on 10 grand. Mm-hmm. And that included buying my bike, which was $1,500. It included crossing the Darien Gap, which was on a sailboat, which was $1,000.
The Darien Gap is how I read something about.
The Darien Gap is like basically Colombia like there's uncrossable forest. So there's no way to get to Colombia from Colombia to Panama. Like there's no roads, and of course there's tons of legends and myth about drug dealing, cartel things within that deep in that forest that kind of have their terrains. So you have to cross the Darien Gap. I mean, regardless of what truth there is in that, like it's unpassable jungle with no roads. So you have to pass on a sailboat or fly between Colombia and Panama. So I had to pay a sailboat to crane my bike, to take my bike to the boat, crane my boat up on my bike up onto the boat.
And you had this pre-planned, or was it you planned it you figured it out?
Gosh, I don't remember. I mean, you had to look into those details in advance. There's not very many sailboats that will take motorcycles. But I mean, obviously I had to do some type of pre-research at some point. And then I don't remember exactly when I ended up booking passage, but at some point that got sorted out.
So you cross over, and then what stands out to you the most about that trip?
It's a very deep question.
Yeah, I know, but I guess what's one of the first things that comes to mind?
You and I chatted a little bit about this before, and it's like that it was hard.
Yeah.
Like
that seems like
hard.
So much of it,
like
what you remember is the difficulty of it. But it sounds like
also
you really
like
enjoy
breathtaking.
That.
Yeah. Like also just breathtaking. Like breath. Like that cannot be bought.
It's this theme of like being uncomfortable, comfortable with the uncomfortable, and actually looking for it because it helps
like how much you can put up with.
Yeah.
And then coming back and being like, holy crap, I have like hot water. Like I just have to like, I can like take a shower whenever I want. I can close the door when I go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
Like you just come back and it's like you have like such that culture shock. Like that stands out to me a lot. And I think about it now and it's like I wouldn't have not done the trip, but at the same time, like it was so hard. Like I don't want to do a trip like that again. Which is weird.
How long?
I mean, I want to keep traveling. It was almost a year.
It was almost a year.
It was almost a year on the road, like camping on the side of the road and, cooking from you can make these little stoves that burn alcohol from 2 Coke cans. You just need 2 like Coke cans and you can make this little stove and it burns alcohol. So it's awesome because you don't need like that expensive and hard to find like fuel. And so like, I think physically like so challenging. Like my butt, I've never experienced butt pain like that in my whole life.
I'm sure.
So I actually and then I ate a lot of shit, like crashed my bike a lot, like throughout the trip. And so, just none of them were super bad. I had there was one in particular that was pretty hard, but like I had a truck run over my foot. Like just crazy crap. And like people are just like, I don't know. It's crazy. I don't even remember what the original question was, but my body, it just came back destroyed. And my nutrition, I wasn't able to eat nutrition. So I came back with a lot of like gut issues, like a lot of I think I probably ingested a lot of parasites and like had to like heal my like gut microbiome and stuff like that through probiotics.
So while you're on the trip, I think you mentioned that you got a chance to teach.
So, I mean, I did when I wasn't camping on the side of the road, I was doing couch surfing, which if you aren't familiar with it, it's essentially like you ask locals to host you through this website. And it's actually, the website's gotten, it was like a lot more grassroots, and then it's gotten really big, which has created a lot of controversy. But so I had the opportunity to teach a lot of those people kind of like in trade, like here's what I can offer you. Also, I remember like, I'm traveling and like I left and like I had just, done my teacher training. I've been teaching and I was like, I'm going to do yoga every day. And like just that reality of like, I just rode my freaking motorcycle for 8 hours. My ass hurts. Like, I'm freaking exhausted. I mean, because it's not like when you're riding in a car. It's like maybe the person that's driving gets to, is paying attention, and then the other person gets to zone out or sleep or read or like whatever it is that they're doing. It's like when you're on a motorcycle, it's like just constant awareness. And even the throttle, like I didn't have a throttle lock. So you have to have your hand throttling the entire time.
So your wrist probably hurt.
Your like everything hurt, and like these grand plans I had to be doing these like full practices just went, immediately went to shit. And so I had to find different ways. And I was physically so cold. I lost like any body fat I had like pretty quickly into the trip. And we would go up into the mountains, we'd be wet, and then we'd go up into the mountains and like would just freeze. I just remember being so cold. Like our fingers would turn purple, like that kind of cold.
Yeah.
And like cold like I've never been in my life. And like I would do breathing exercises, like breath of fire and like other types of breathing exercises. So that's when I started exploring like some of the other types of yoga that are available. And also just kind of like my body hurts, like the feel good yoga, where you're just like, just gonna like, do a little twisting here and like, that was all the energy I could muster up, to do. So all my grand plans of like teaching along the way, like never quite manifested. But I did teach quite a bit. I did practice quite a bit, just not my like hour every day like I had.
Did you meet people? Planned. Were there people that you met
Traveling by motorcycle? One is very much a solo activity. So it's a lot about solitude actually. And because I was camping on the side of the road, we weren't talking to people. So when I did, we only stayed at a few hostels. We obviously talked to people when we did the couch surfing, but actually a lot less time talking to people than one would think. If you think about how people normally travel when they backpack, it's like they gather at bus stations. They can meet people. They're on the bus next to people. They can meet people. They're staying at hostels or lodges. They're going out to eat a lot more. Like most people that are backpacking aren't backpacking with a camp stove. And like making their own food. They're like
you also don't have the
eating out
for it.
Totally.
You're keeping it with you on this kind of trip.
Totally. Unless you're backpacking in the wilderness, but like an average like touristy backpacker, like they're eating local food. So there was actually not as many opportunities to talk to people as you would think.
Yeah. See, I was not expecting that because I've never done that. I went on a tour with a band and I just spent, we did that. We stayed in tents and stuff at national parks, but we also stayed at people's houses. So I met people all the time.
Yeah.
But,
I spent like Patagonia is very isolated, like a lot of times where you just don't see a lot of people. When you're doing a country from top to bottom on a motorcycle, you're just seeing everything and you're going through the wilderness as much as you are going through the cities. And frankly, for the most part, when you're trying to camp, because your budget's so low, you're trying to get through the cities as quickly as possible to get back to places where you can camp. So your goal is actually to be outside of the city before dark to find a place to camp.
Yeah. So you constantly have to be going. So I bet that changes your perception of time. That's something that I experienced.
You're like, I could stay here for forever. This place is beautiful. And like 10 minutes later, you're like, I'm ready to go.
You can't be attached to anything. You have to just keep moving. That's definitely something that stuck out to me a lot when I traveled. Is that you just can't stay anywhere. It's like, I gotta go.
Yeah.
I've been here for too long.
It's been 15 minutes.
Time to move on.
Time to go.
2 minutes.
The longest I stayed was like Lake Atitlan in Guatemala. I was there for like a week, and I was like, maybe we'll stay here for like 2-3 weeks. And like it was like 7 days, and I was like, I gotta get out of here.
Do you have pictures of it?
Oh, I'm sure there's a lot of pictures. Yeah, it's actually a big yoga resort. Like it's like this basin, and there's just like a lot of yoga studios. Like a lot of teachers go down there and teach. And I did a little bit of yoga. One of the only teachers was a Kundalini teacher. And if you know anything about Kundalini, it's like very much like breath work and like weird noises and stuff. And it was not my style at all. And I was like, I took a class. I'm like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to take this class. I already knew it wasn't really for me, but I was like the only class that day or something. And I took it, in the whole class, I was just like, this is so awkward. But everyone that loves Kundalini, like, I mean, they just love it. And like, I love the people that love Kundalini. It attracts a lot of like the really quirky, cool people. But new
agey.
Yeah, like just super like into energy and like really intuitive people. But just like to do these poses and like like make all these noises like I don't know, just you do like for like
I've
10 minutes. It's interesting.
No, but I know what you're talking. The kind of person, I know.
It's definitely a specific style of yoga that's not for everyone.
Very in touch.
Yeah.
Yeah. So okay. When did you come back to San Antonio, and what did you do when you came?
I rode back on my noble motorcycle steed, drove all the way back to San Antonio. So I did, started in Santiago, Chile, went all the way south to Ushuaia, which is as far south as you can go. Yeah. And then I came all the way back, drove into San Antonio, and stopped at a friend's house. I didn't have anywhere to live. Like, I didn't have a place here in San Antonio. So I went to a friend's house and like did laundry and like was like, woohoo! And then like that was the end of my trip.
My God.
I just like pulled up to my friend's house and my friend was like, hey! We were like, hey!
Did your friend know you were showing up? Or
Yeah. And then like we just kind of like, and then we just like put some laundry in the, I'm like, can I use your washer? That was like the end of my trip. Yeah.
That is so cool.
Yeah. It was really nice to go back to something so comfortable as opposed to like.
The closest that I can relate to this is doing a marathon. Because like when you do a marathon, you are so fucked up when you're done. Like you are so fucked up. Like physically, you've lost weight. You look like a different person.
I would never do a marathon.
Yeah, I did a full, and like this is the closest I can relate. Like is that by the time I was done, I look like a different person. I'll show you photos one of these days. I had dropped like something like 10 pounds, like a lot. I'd lost a considerable amount of weight just running it. But you feel like and people ask you, for the viewers at home, like. There's just something about putting yourself under pressure and making yourself do something that's physically uncomfortable that just helps you develop. Yeah. So when did you start teaching yoga again?
So essentially, I decided that I was going to leave San Antonio. If any of you guys remember the San Antonio of 2012 and 2013
that's when I arrived
and 2011. Yeah, like not very exciting.
No, it was pretty... For me, it was exciting.
I feel like everything's exciting for him.
Yeah, I was. Yeah. Well, I come from a smaller town. So like when I got here, I was just like, what? Like I was just like, I liked it, like right from the get-go.
Yeah, I did not. Like from the moment I got here, I was like, I gotta get out of here. And like coming from like having traveled a lot of places and like from like 12 to 20 being in Chicago, like, it's a bigger
city. Yeah, I understand.
And so I was like determined to leave. And so I went from here to living in Austin. I came back from the motorcycle trip. I was back for just probably a month, less than that, maybe even like a week. I don't remember exactly. And then like went to try to live in Austin for like a month. And like very quickly I went to a yoga class. I remember very distinctly, it was like a 1:30 class or like a 1 or like a 2 o'clock class in the middle of a weekday. And I remember going back to the place that I was staying and being stuck in traffic. And I was like, I'll never leave the house. If like I can't take an afternoon yoga class without, like I'll be miserable. if I have to sit in traffic both ways, if it's going to take me 3 hours to take a class. And then I got an offer from Jane, who owns Two Hearts Yoga Studio, where I manage still, to manage the studio. So I actually came back to San Antonio to accept that job offer to manage the studio.
Cool.
And start teaching right away.
Yeah. And would you say you were happier now?
So I had a month, I had probably grieved for a month for this idea of I said I was never coming back here. And then I don't know, I fell in love. I fell in love with the city. And originally it was just the people. It was the community that I had built through yoga that I just loved, that just embraced me and loved me. And I started to really put in roots. And then right around 2013, 2014, 2015, San Antonio just blossomed.
It blew up.
Yeah.
Shit. I mean, I remember going when I first would visit, there was nothing at the Pearl yet. There's maybe one restaurant or something. I remember going there and getting drunk and sleeping on the little stadium there. Back when that wasn't a thing there. You know what I mean? There was 1 or 2 restaurants there. Now it's this whole thing.
Totally.
Yeah.
So San Antonio changed, and when I moved back here, I just started to really build community. I mean, the friendships that I had left. Thank you. The relationships that I had left had changed. I mean, I'd been gone for a year. So I kind of felt like I was starting from scratch in that respect, which was awesome. I was able to start teaching at new places and build new community and really come back. And
I think part of what probably enables you to have that is that you care. So as a student and as a fellow instructor, even though we teach something different, I can tell the difference between when an instructor cares and when an instructor doesn't. When it's when you're there to service what that person needs rather than to just tell them.
Right.
And you do a very good job of doing that. So whenever I've taken your classes, I always feel man, she cares so much. She goes out of her way to tell you this and things like that. And that really makes a big difference. And so, I would assume that that's probably part of the reason why you've been able to make connections so well.
I feel I think that ties into and this is kind of a big topic that I won't dive into too much, but the student-teacher relationship. And so when you were coming to my classes, you were coming regularly, twice a week.
Yes.
And that is when I'm best able to help somebody when they come to my class regularly, because I know what level they're working at. I know what they're capable of across a broad range of movements. And I'm also able to kind of see where are they holding back, what's tight in their body, what's fear, what are these places that we can start to confront together, move into that space of fear, but with me by your side, so it's not so scary. And then trying to find that balance between guiding them, letting them take flight, holding their hand, telling them to fly on their own, and that sort of thing. Which
is an incredibly valuable skill for people in my training set, because for you all, you have to go through a 200-hour and more certification. In ours, it's completely different. Certs and stuff like that, you can get them a much different way, and you never have to set foot in a gym or talk to anybody and get a cert and start teaching people. So there's this real disconnect in our community where trainers sometimes don't know how to teach. And so, if you're a trainer, and this is just a side note to people who are watching this, if you're a trainer in my community space, if you're a personal trainer or something like that, I strongly recommend that you take a class or you find another trainer so you can learn how to teach and figure out what your training style is and what you like or what you dislike in a teacher. Absolutely. That's something that I think that yoga people get that should be in my community that isn't. So that's really cool. So, all right. So you're doing this thing. You move back to here. You're
moved
teaching
back to
yoga.
Here. Fell in love with San Antonio.
Yeah.
Definitely want to stay here.
Awesome place.
Yeah, and then just pretty much started teaching. Pretty much full time. For quite a while, not as much now, but I got really into acro yoga in 2014, 2015. And then it's that community, it really struggles here in town. And so
it's there's only so many people.
Yeah, and when we don't have next level teachers to be able to teach our teachers how to teach. Yeah. So, at some point there's kind of a plateau there. But it's something that I loved, and that was my entrance into the circus world. So I was doing circus there.
Oh, wait. Can we back up a little bit?
Yeah.
Can you tell our viewers at home what acro yoga is?
Acro yoga is essentially like gymnasts have been doing versions of acrobatics for a long time, like the circus world. And like acro yoga, like essentially they took a lot of yoga and like a lot of the acrobatic stuff that gymnasts have been doing for forever, and kind of combined them in a lot of new unique ways have come out of it now that people have been playing with it for longer, like people that have been in the community for a long time. But essentially, if you imagine like a yoga pose and like putting it on someone's feet or on someone's hand.
Partnership yoga.
Totally.
Yeah.
Partner yoga, like to take it into the dangerous extremes, but also not dangerous if you know what you're doing and you have a spot.
Yeah.
Always have a spot and mats.
It's great. It's so much fun.
It's a lot of fun. I loved it. I loved it.
Yeah, I love it too.
Yeah. And I also think, I'm not to digress and go too deep into acro, but that playfulness that a lot of us, when we get really focused on our careers and how this is the way that things are supposed to be. And also like just that play, like as adults, like we need a space for play.
Yeah,
and
primates
we don't really,
and
we don't create that space.
It gives you this ability to be intimate with somebody without it needing to be something that's more than that. It's just that physical touch that sometimes people are missing when they're sitting in a cubicle and working all day.
And it gives you a little bit of permission, I think like we have those, the Me Too movement where guys really do need to be very conscientious about consent. But also, I mean, just in general, like most workplaces are not conducive to any type of physical touch. It would be completely inappropriate. But I think we kind of go through life like that. I mean, if it's not your primary partner, then you're not really engaging in a lot of physical touch. I mean, I have very few girls that are friends that are physically affectionate with me, and vice versa. I love affection. So
yeah, me too.
I think acro gives a space for that.
It's so therapeutic.
Yeah. And also don't accept creepy touching in acro, but totally whatever.
No groping.
No groping. No acro groping.
Get handsy.
But totally, just play, like bringing play back.
Yeah, it's like when you're on the playground. When you're a kid, you're running around, you're pushing, you're throwing and stuff like that. It's like reigniting that. It's awesome. Yeah. So you get into circus arts. So
I get into acro, and then one of the people, she's amazing. Her name is Jen Crane, and she's Cirque Physio now, and she like worked with the Olympians in China. She's a PT, and super freaking awesome. And she like moved off to like left San Antonio to all these amazing things. But she was doing trapeze with Mark Stewart, who also used to live here in town, who's also doing amazing things now. He's amazing, and which has been cool to watch their growth for me. Like I saw Mark before he could do a one arm, and now he's doing like one arm handstand presses with his handstand coach in San Diego. And like performing. I mean, he's amazing. Anyway, so they were doing duo trapeze, and like they were so amazing to invite me. Like they kind of took me under their wings a little bit, and I started to learn, and I fell just in love with trapeze. I still love trapeze, and really wanted to do duo trapeze, and I just couldn't find a base. So for a while, my friend Rachel, who we both know, was my base, and then we just kind of kept hitting ceilings of like what we could do. So I ended up doing solo trapeze pretty seriously for quite a while. And then several things have kind of led to me not focusing on that. But just
can
absolute love.
Can you explain to them what you mean by base? Because this is actually not a concept that I mean, I know what a base is when you're in acro, right? I'm assuming it's
so in
something
acro,
similar.
the base is like the person that's supporting the flyer. So the base either is like, you're either on the base's feet or on the base's hands. And then in trapeze, if you think of like in a big top circus tent, you think of the girl like being caught by the guy who's hanging upside down on the trapeze, like maybe between two guys or something like that. That's all duo trapeze. So they would be the base that's catching the flyer, which generally it's guys with girls. And then there's duo trapeze routines where guys and girls just do really, really cool things. And they flip, the girl will flip and the guy will catch her by her feet. And, it's amazing. But it's very painful to be a base because you have the metal bar like digging into your thighs.
So because you're hanging on.
Because you're hanging, you're hanging in something called a catcher's lock, and so the steel bar of the trapeze is like right across your thighs, and then you've got not only your weight of you just hanging there, but then you've got the weight of whoever your flyer is. And I'm actually, I'm not a great flyer's body. Like I'm not a big person by any means, but like really like 4-foot people. I mean, girls make awesome flyers because they're so small, they're easy to. And they're lightweight. So that makes it more difficult to find a base also. You have to find a base who's bigger. Yeah, to take a flyer who's bigger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
it's a tough life for
you're doing
anyone
you're doing
over 5 feet in the flying world.
You're doing the circus thing, and right now that's not something that's a big part of your.
Yeah, so I mean, I was doing it, and just a couple things. I had an amazing teacher at Arrow Horizons, which is a circus center here in town. They just built a custom place. I don't work for them, but they're amazing. If you want to do circus, go check it out.
Put them in the link.
Julia owns it, and she's fantastic. But Teddy was my teacher, and she left for bigger, better things. So I was no longer studying with her. And then I was rigging at a gym here in town, and they changed their rigging points. So I was there's two types of there's a lot of different types of trapeze, but one is single point. So the 2 ropes of the trapeze go up to a single point. There's single point with a swivel, which is like you rotate, which most single point usually rotates. And then there's double point. So each rope goes up to a separate point. And what happens when you're on a single point is the ropes come together. So the tricks that you're able to do become different. And then if you add in a swivel, that's something else. And I liked stagnant, double rigged trapeze or double point. And so I was no longer able to rig like that.
That sucks.
Yeah. So that was a big part. Like I would train several times a week. It was a big part of my routine.
I remember when I first met you, you were doing
like religiously.
I see pictures of you and Rachel.
Yeah, all the time. And I was even still doing it on the single point, but I could only do a lot of the conditioning stuff until I was in class and had the double point again. And so it's just really hard to find a place where you can rig and not pay like an open gym fee. I couldn't afford to pay a $20 open gym fee 3 times a week.
Yeah.
To train trapeze, and you need high ceilings and preferably mats. Mats underneath of you.
Yeah.
So it's just there's not a lot of spaces that are conducive to that.
That makes perfect
So that
sense.
kind of, and also just really really being into hand balancing, and needing to spend more time focusing on that, and also on yoga. I mean, at some point you can only split your attention in so many directions.
Yeah, because then it's like you can either be a jack of all trades or
or you can be really good at one thing. Yeah. And I always think that cross training, I've learned so much from cross training. And it's good for your musculature also to do some cross training.
Mentally.
I mean, the trapeze is pulling versus a lot of yoga and hand balancing was just pushing. So that's healthy for your shoulders to have that type of versatile strength. But at some point, like you have to kind of really zero in on what you're most passionate about and put your attention there.
So what are you doing now? What's your yoga practice? Because I read somewhere that you were focusing on Ashtanga. Is that true?
Yeah. So I've done a lot of 180s. So I started off doing Anusara yoga, which is an alignment, very like heart opening, type of style of yoga, which is what Jane teaches, although she does teach Amashaya now, which is similar to Anusara in a lot of ways. So it's a lot of just like, feel the beauty of like the divine within you and like just this opening stuff. Partly the reason that I started doing Ashtanga, which is like would be considered like a little bit more of a rigid style. It's a set sequence, although there are multiple set sequences. So you make your way through one sequence successfully and your teacher gives you permission to start to begin on the next sequence. For those of you that don't have that context. But once I started doing hand balancing more seriously and the circus arts, as I got stronger here in San Antonio, it's hard to find a teacher who is working at more advanced levels with the physical practice of yoga. And so I started to gravitate to Ashtanga because those were the strongest yogis that I knew. And so I was very attracted to their strength and to the dedication of their practice. And here in San Antonio in particular, a lot of people could kind of take or leave their yoga practice, and their physical practice in general. I'm sure you know as a trainer, like it's very hard to get people. And partly San Antonio is such a family town, so people have a lot of family obligations that get in the way. And as always, we just have a lot on our plates, like the modern person. And so
I appreciate you being so considerate like that. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you were saying
you do. I mean, and that's why sometimes just people showing up to class is like, I'm just proud of you because it's hard.
People have a
it's
lot
hard.
on their plate,
yeah, people have a lot on their plate, which is why people can always show up late to my class. Within reason. I mean, life is hard. Yeah. I mean, don't be stressing about getting to yoga on time. Like, just show up and come in when you can, and and do
we have
your
that
thing.
same policy.
Yeah,
we have people who show up 15 minutes late.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, we got to get it in.
Sometimes it's the best you can do. I mean, as long as you're doing your best, that's all. All I ask. So, your original question was, Ashtanga. So I started doing pretty much primarily Ashtanga for quite a while, which has been really interesting because it's given me some really unique perspectives on studying different styles of yoga really intensively. And then have now kind of backed away a little bit from Ashtanga now. Not for any particular reason. I just, my life started pushing me really hard and requiring a lot of strength from me. And so I needed my practice.
Or physically?
Emotionally. Yeah. So I needed my practice to not be requiring those things from me. And I think the best way that you can have a practice that's going to last a lifetime is to have a practice that's versatile. And so partly you just have to find that balance.
Or knowing when you need a different kind of medicine. So I always say that, like, training is a form of medicine. Like when you work out, when you dance, when you do acro yoga, like all those different things ignite different, serotonin, dopamine, different chemicals in your body. Using your body in different ways makes you feel differently. Like for me, like a long time, like my medicine was running, that peace that you get. And then like it became something else, it's like knowing when you need something different to mirror what's going on in your life.
Totally.
Maybe you're a mom who's really, really busy and you don't have the time to go work out and, do an hour class. Maybe your medicine needs to be a 15-minute workout, in your house.
Absolutely.
It's like making sure. So it's awesome that you had the insight to realize that you needed to do something different to kind of get you ready.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and then everything in life is cyclical. And so I'm coming back to more of a place of strength, and it looks a little bit different now for me than it did before. But my passion continues to be the practice of more advanced poses and a lot of hand balancing, which fascinates me. Yeah. Fascinates me. Yeah. It's a labor of love.
It's definitely something I want. I can't do it all at once.
Yeah.
Like I can't, but it's definitely something that I personally want. It's not doable right now.
Yeah. Well, and handstanding, it's like, it's a thing of its own. So handstanding is like a practice of its own. So if you're doing yoga practice, it can involve handstands, but to be really good at handstands, you have to be doing, drills and conditioning on the side that's going to make it, accessible.
Yeah. That 2 minutes where your teacher lets you kind of like play with it isn't enough.
You're not going to get anywhere which is, but I also think it's important to have that opportunity to play.
Yeah, so you can find something that you want to work on.
Yeah, so that's important for me in my classes to give students that space.
Of course, and that's one thing I always loved is like, I get to practice my little trick.
Totally.
Yeah, I still practice tricks. Like, so when I took your workshop, have I taken 1 or 2 workshops?
You came to, I think side crow, right? Or you missed side crow?
I did 2. I came for crow because crow was broken up into 3, right? So I came to 2 of them. Yeah, and I got a lot out of that. I still do that. Like I still do that in my workouts actually when I'm doing like core work and stuff like that. So that made a big difference.
Yeah. Cool.
So okay. So now what are you doing right at this moment in terms of teaching? Where can people find you?
People can find me. So first of all, you don't have to memorize this. I have a website, lanareed.com, Lana Reed, REED.
I will post a link in the description.
Cool. LanaReed.com, you scroll down. It's getting redesigned right now, but it's still active. And it has my class schedule. I'm mostly at Alamo City Yoga, which is right by the Bignay. It's right in the heart of Alamo Heights. It's a beautiful space. I do teach
I didn't know you were up the street from here. Huh.
Yeah.
I'll have to swing by.
Yeah. It's beautiful space. Yeah. And the owner is amazing. Her name is Ashley. And she is such like one of those people that you just want to be around. because her energy is just beautiful, beautiful. And just so incredibly passionate, like about her space and about people. And that's really special. So I walked into that space and I was like, I love it here. So I teach a lot of my classes, Saturdays, Sundays there, and then Tuesdays. And then I'm at Hamsa, which is another beautiful space owned by Courtney Miller and Debbie Anderson. And they are fantastic teachers, fantastic people, quality people. And they are doing really amazing types of body therapy and breath work, and like are just incredible people. I have one class Tuesdays at noon there. And then I teach an ass kicker happy hour class that's by donation on Friday nights at Two Hearts Yoga Studio. Yeah, so I'm at those 3 studios. Yeah. And then you can just see my class schedule on my Instagram, which is Lana Reed, Sparkly Unicorn.
Also in the description section. Yeah.
And then my Facebook is like Lana Reed. My photography page is Wild Thing Photo. And you can find that just through my regular Instagram page or through my regular Facebook page. And I'm also super excited. I'm doing a teacher training in the fall.
Tell us more.
What can I tell you? One, I'm bringing my teachers from Austin. So Giaconda Parker and Shanti Kelly are partnering with me, and they have taught me not just so much about yoga, like about the physical practice of yoga, but Shanti is also has her master's in spiritual psychology. So like the deeper work that we were talking about, like they have done it, and they can guide you through it, and like. I did my 300-hour advanced training with them, and they just changed my life, and I'm so incredibly blessed that they wanted to be a part of the teacher training. So they're coming down, and then I'm bringing just a ton of my teachers. Jane Goldstein, who owns Two Hearts, is going to do part of the teacher training with me. My teacher Alejandro Alex Reyes from Yogashala is going to come and do some of the hand balancing parts with me, and some of the assisting stuff, and the adjustment part. And I just have like incredible teachers. You can read all of their bios. If you go to alamocityyoga.com and you click on the teacher training page, you can read the bios of all the teachers that are going to be participating. And then if you have any questions at all that come up specifically, feel free to reach out to me.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah. I'm going to post links to all this stuff so that any of my followers, if they want, they can find you and find your teacher training. Yay. So we're getting close to the end of our interview. I'm going to go ahead and ask you a few quick
I'm nervous.
questions. I know. Okay. You should be. Okay. All right. Hardest yoga position for you?
Oh, man. Double leg behind the head. It's called Dvipada Shirshasana. And it's because you have to start with the left leg. So my right leg can go behind my head for days, like no problem. Okay. But my left leg, I'm very imbalanced on my sides. And so you have to start with your left leg. And then you have to balance. So you're supposed to bring your left leg behind your head, and then bind your right leg behind your head, and then balance with your hands at your heart. And it's really pesky. But it's also one of my favorites because it's awesome, but it's hard.
It sounds hard.
Yeah, it's really hard.
Especially for me, my hamstrings, like.
I remember.
So I can't. No, that's not going to happen. Yeah.
Yeah. Also, I mean, there's of course other things, but that one in particular.
That's awesome.
Because it's so mental too. Yeah.
Isn't it?
Yeah. Especially that deep hip opening. You're just like, I'm going to die. I'm going to die right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So coffee or tea?
Definitely tea.
Okay.
I don't like coffee. I like the smell. Usually. But I hate the taste of coffee. I've never drank coffee. And in fact, I rarely drink tea these days, although I love it. But it stains my teeth.
What kind of tea?
Organic, fair trade. Very important. And then I really like chais.
Okay. Chai is great with milk.
Yeah. But my ultimate,
what?
You want to know?
Tell me.
Hot chocolate.
With marshmallows?
Almond milk.
With almond milk? You throw marshmallows in there?
No.
Whipped cream?
No.
No?
I avoid dairy in general.
Okay.
Yeah, other than butter.
Well, they even call it stuff vegan too. Yeah.
Vegan marshmallows.
Yeah, they do.
They don't sound delicious. That is so delicious to me.
It doesn't? They're not.
No, but hot chocolate is like my jam.
Yeah.
Like for days. For breakfast, lunch, dinner, hot chocolate.
What brand?
Gosh, there's like this Silly Cow Farms that does like a gluten-free hot chocolate that they sell at Whole Foods around Christmas time. I really like it.
Maybe they can sponsor you.
Sponsor me.
Oh, yeah. And also, like, I'm going to ask you a dumb, easy question. What's your favorite holiday, Lena?
Christmas!
There we go. I knew it. Yeah.
Anyone that knows me would know the answer to that question. Christmas. In fact, I wish I knew how many days it was till Christmas right now. I don't know. But I do know that it's very close to Christmas in July.
Oh, yeah. You always celebrate. You always have a party. Yeah.
Always. Christmas in July.
Yeah. That's exciting.
Christmas never stops.
Let's see. Okay. Do you have another form of exercise that you like to do that you enjoy doing outside of yoga?
Hand balancing, which is separate from yoga. I do that a lot. Okay. And I'm very interested in, although I guess, I don't know that I would say that I really enjoy, but I do enjoy strength training. I think more than flexibility, we need strength in general as people for our lives. So strength training is really important. I don't do any of this crazy stuff, but leg lifts and that type of thing.
Yeah.
And then I actually I hated it originally, the elliptical. But I actually enjoy the elliptical.
Yeah, you enjoy doing some cardio on there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I have a love-hate relationship with bar, like Pilates bar, ballet bar. It's really hard.
Yeah, it looks hard.
It's real hard.
It's like dance meets like yoga.
Yeah, it's like a lot of like hip flexor, just like leg length.
Yeah.
Like, it's intense.
Yes,
yeah.
It's very intense.
Yeah.
I've seen it. I've never taken it, but it freaks me out.
Yeah, I was going pretty religiously to the Y there for a hot minute, and then my teacher left.
Okay. You don't strike me as being much of a TV person.
I don't have a TV.
You don't have, do you watch anything? Do you watch anything on your laptop?
I watch Netflix. I'm totally like a movie junkie. And I am a photographer, which we haven't really touched on at all. I do yoga photography. So when I'm editing that, I'm always binge watching. Like I just binge watched the new season of How to Get Away with Murder.
Okay.
Scandal. Fantastic. What else do I really love? Like this really stupid show, Santa Clarita Diet.
Every woman that I've had on this podcast
has
brought that show up.
It's so bad. It's so bad. But it's like, it's really nice that I don't have to pay that much attention to it also at the same time because I'm editing. So it kind of can be there and entertain me without taking all of my attention. Yeah. Of course, Game of Thrones. Like if you're not a Game of Thrones fan, I'm suspicious of you.
I've only seen 3 episodes.
I'm suspicious of you.
Yeah.
But at least you've seen scene 3.
I've seen 3.
Yeah. I mean, I read the books when I was on my motorcycle trip, actually.
Nice.
Which I like to qualify. I was a Game of Thrones fan before Game of Thrones ever came out on
legit.
TV. Can that be in the notes somewhere?
I'll put it in the notes.
The original
in the
fan
section.
of GOT.
She actually bought the first copy of it.
I bought the first copy.
J.R. Martin. What's his name? Martin something. What's the writer's name?
I'm supposed to be a super fan, and I don't know.
Oh, no.
It is something Martin.
J.R. Martin.
Are we thinking of J.R. Tolkien?
No, that's the other guy. He wrote Lord of the Rings.
I think it's George Martin. I can see it. I can see it, too. And I know what he looks like.
Yeah.
But I can't think of his name off the top of my head. I'm terrible with names off the top of my head.
It's okay.
Like the worst. Like, it will come to me probably in my sleep. I'm going to sit straight up out of bed like I have risen from the dead.
Text me when you remember. I'm not going to Google it.
I think it's J.R. Martin. I think it's Martin something. J.R. Martin.
J.R. Martin.
G. That's what I'm trying to say. G with a G. Did I say J with a J?
Yeah. We
like
both
your name.
Saying J.
Yeah, I was thinking G and I was saying
You
J.
know what? It's okay.
Yeah.
All right. She was original though. She bought your first book. If you want to sponsor her, like, it'd be crazy if they made you like yoga mats and like you just
so badass.
Hawthor Bjornsson he's on that show. He's deadlifted 900 pounds or something like that.
Is he the mountain?
1,000. I think so. I've never seen Game of Thrones really. Okay. He's this really crazy tall guy.
I think that's probably the mountain.
Yeah, he blew up earlier this year. He's a strong man. I feel like he could
He's
strong as shit.
That's probably why they call him the strong man.
Yeah. He's right now the strongest man in the world.
Holy shit.
Right now for strongman training. Okay. He won that, but that changes every year. Okay, so the next question, we've only got like a few seconds left, is favorite meal to eat. If you had like a last meal, what would it be?
A last meal?
Yeah, last meal.
Sweet potatoes.
Everything.
No.
Yeah. You can have sweet potatoes.
That's really
in there.
hard.
I know. You're on death row.
Ice cream.
No. Okay. Food.
Mango sticky rice.
Okay. With what?
I really like desserts.
Mango
sticky rice.
Okay,
like
mango
sticky rice with mangoes.
I've never had that.
Go to Tidy off of Blanco and have it.
Okay, Tidy is dope. That was my next question. Is what's your favorite restaurant in town?
Tidy.
Tidy? Oh, Tidy is so good. This is
Mango
the third
sticky rice.
time
Really?
on this podcast that Tidy has came up. Santa Clara Diet and Tidy have been mentioned more than anything.
Yeah, that Thai place is legit.
Okay.
It's really good.
Yeah, it is. I'm gonna put you guys down in the description section.
Tidy.
Yeah. All right, cool. Lena. Well, I think we're done here. Lena, could we have you back for part 2 at some point?
Sure.
Yeah, I'd love to see where you're at.
I'm at your disposal.
Awesome.
Of course.
All right. So, people, I will post all the information that you need to find Lena online. If you want to find me, you can find me at totalbodytraining.com, Total Body Training on Instagram, and Total Body Training on Facebook. Do you want to say yours again?
Yeah, Lana Reed. It can also be Lana. Some people use Lana, and that's totally fine. Yeah. And it's lanareed.com. Super easy. Lana Reed Sparkly Unicorn on Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And Lana Reed on Facebook. Yeah.
All right, people. Until next time.
Bye, you guys.
Peace.